Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Welcome everyone to Satsang. Lovely to see you all. Let's begin today with this pointing poem entitled The Natural State, Sahaja. Recognizing who you are is discovered when you totally stop, surrendering everything. Your personality, personal story, and ego are about who you think you are while in motion in the body, mind, and world. But when you stop completely, totally, without reservation, holding nothing back, what is already there, what is already here, what cannot be added to, cannot be subtracted from, is reached and revealed and is nothing new. As long as you keep adding content internally in the mind or externally in the world, true nature is constantly veiled, moment by moment, by that adding to. Only empty mind, free of thinking, at the end of experience, gross and subtle, reveals the truth of being as the natural state, Sahaja. So a couple of things are being pointed toward here. The first, and maybe the most important, is that you already are what you are seeking. That this is your natural state. And that it is the mind, the second point, which has this tendency toward motion, diversity, diversification, proliferation, and keeps us constantly searching through its own content and through the experiences of the world for satisfaction, until it realizes that that satisfaction that it's seeking cannot be found there. And then it will begin the process of surrender or stopping. So this is the nature of the inquiry, to bring us to this point where we can naturally and easily remember in a moment to ask ourselves, am I aware? Who am I? What is aware here? And in so doing, we come to a stop. It's in this moment that the recognition of our true nature as being, consciousness, and bliss is revealed. Not as something new, but as something which has always been here. So, please, if you'd like to share or speak, turn on your microphone, unmute yourself.
So, Rishi, Michael.
Hello.
Hello. Namaste.
Namaste.
We have been having some wonderful experiences with nature, the birds, the bees, the flowers. I mean, it's just incredible. The weather, we've had really a lot of wind, but just incredible experiences. I call them all epiphany experiences because they just seem so good. I think there's a lot of changes going on the planet, and I think that's a manifestation of what it is. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Talk a little bit about what exactly?
Oh, about the changes in nature. What's happening? It's really beautiful. At least it's happening for me.
Yeah. This is the key point. You know, nature is always a way for us to connect deeply with our inner joy, our inner happiness. But we can also ask ourselves, anytime we're experiencing this kind of joy and this kind of happiness, we can also ask ourselves, what is the source or what is the root of this happiness? Certainly, to be as we are here in the mountains, especially this time of the year, in the springtime, brings us close in an external way with this sense of inner peace and inner joy. It's interesting because, you know, when the mind is still and calm, peaceful, and undisturbed by the thoughts that are moving through it, what we experience is a natural state of joy. One of the things we learn through the inquiry is that this joy, this peace, this bliss, if you will, is always there. It flows from us as awareness, not from the me personality, but from the inherent awareness which is here all the time. And when we experience joy, beauty, pleasure, nature, we often forget that the source of this recognition of joy, beauty, peace, and calm lies deep within us. It doesn't lie in the objects themselves. The reason that it's important or significant to remember this is because until we're ready to recognize that the source of joy and peace in the world rests in the silent awareness of our own being, we'll place value on being in the right place at the right time with the right person in the right circumstances, and we'll spend all of our effort to create, if you will, in the mind's eye, the perfect circumstances, whether it's for the re-experiencing of joy or it's for awakening. We will always be searching for the correct the most supportive circumstances, that we can feel this joy. And we will miss the point. The point being that joy, bliss, love, compassion, these qualities and characteristics rise within pristine awareness. They are reflected by the circumstances. So while the circumstances certainly can help us on a day-to-day basis to feel a sense of wonder, a sense of beauty, a sense of joy, ultimately we have to realize that the circumstances make no difference. It is the recognition that I am that which is aware, being, consciousness, bliss, Satchitananda. When this is realized to be my nature, and the ego has subsided, and the personality has been left to itself, and is no longer being supported by the manipulation of body, mind, and world. When this occurs, then we are said to be awakened. And what has happened is we have withdrawn from the objects, the attachment to objects, to circumstances, and we are resting in the heart of being as the self. So one of the things you can know is that when you are hyper aware of the beauty and the joy in your surroundings, one of the things you can know is that within your own being, even without thinking about it, you are touching Satchitananda, being, consciousness, and bliss. This is what you are seeing. It is manifesting as birds, flowers, sunshine, and joy.
Bahut shukriya. Thank you very much.
But even at these times, it is good for us to be a little bit vigilant, because even when we realize that all of this is rising as the self, as being, consciousness, and bliss, this pesky ego, this pesky personality, this sense that I am someone special, or I have realized something, can rise up and co-opt the whole experience, returning us back to this recognition, back into some sense of I-ness or me-ness or mine-ness. So always while we are aware that this natural state, or sahaja, creates for us, all around us, this beauty and this joy, it's also important to realize that if the ego comes in and says, oh, aren't I beautiful, aren't I great, I am so realized, that what will happen is that the ego will then co-opt this experience, try to make it personal. And of course, the recognition of self is not a personal experience. It's actually the absence of the personal. When there is no one here, what is left is the self. As consciousness, awareness, being. This is the nature of the self. This has nothing to do with whatever experience or circumstances we are having. It's said that the sage lives his or her entire life in joy, in beauty. But that does not mean that the circumstances around them are always joyful or beautiful. This is pointing to the source of joy. the source of beauty, which is in the realized mind, heart, and being. This can be very reassuring when you're in a difficult time or a difficult moment, to come to the remembrance that the nature of your own being is being consciousness. And though the circumstances may be difficult, they will pass. And what will remain is this recognition: I am the self, only the self. All of this is only that. If you remember that all of this is only that, then you can receive the lessons of your own being and consciousness, the lessons of the divine, in whatever your circumstances are. You can ask the question, who am I? You can notice, even in this circumstance, I am aware. Difficult, challenging, yes. Beautiful, lovely, yes. But by noticing that awareness is here, you free yourself from attachment. Not that you become detached, emotionally withdrawn, but that you become non-attached to the circumstances. This is the way to return to the source and know yourself as the self, being consciousness. So someone just sent me a chat message saying that they could not hear Stanley. So if you are unable to hear some part of the conversation, don't hesitate to unmute your mic and just speak into the room so that I can understand, or I can know, or I can make an adjustment about what is happening. Because I often don't notice the chat until sometime later. So it doesn't just pop up on the screen for some reason. I don't know why. It seemed like it used to, but maybe it doesn't now. I don't know. Zoom changes things too. So from time to time things change, and it takes me a little bit of time to catch up with what the changes are. But anyway, Stanley's question, in case any of the others couldn't hear, what he was just mentioning about how beautiful it is. The springtime in New Mexico is quite lovely, and it's warming up here, and the birds are out and the flowers are coming out, and it's been quite lovely. And it's very windy here this time of year. But anyway, this was what his question was. This is what his comment was, and I was simply commenting on that. You know, my reference is always, how do I use this? You know, whatever this is, whatever the experience we are having, whether sublimely beautiful or really difficult, you know, I'm always encouraging you to ask the question, how can I use this? What is this? What is the point of this? And coming back to awareness itself, coming back into the recognition of the self under all circumstances and conditions.
And I put on a headset with a mic, so can everybody hear me now?
Okay, yes, everyone is saying yes. Thank you, Stanley. Yeah, this is one of the things that we've been working with over the last few months, you know, here on this end as well, is that often if you're just engaging here on Zoom and you're using a microphone which is either on your phone or on a laptop, there is often a lot of static, and there's things break up, and things aren't always audible. So, you know what I've done here is added a large external microphone, and I don't expect any of you to do this. I'm actually quite grateful, those of you who have been supporting this effort financially and so on. I thank you on behalf of the Satsang that have been supporting the equipment upgrades and so on. So we've had to get new headphones, we've had to get new microphones, computer screens, things like this to add peripherals that remove noise, strengthen signal, all sorts of things that have to happen to make the satsang available to you all. So I'm very, very grateful for those of you who send PayPal contributions that support this effort and the monthly expenses of operating the satsang. So on behalf of the whole satsang, I send you my thanks and gratitude. But I do appreciate, and don't hesitate, if you are having some difficulty with the audio or the video, let me know, either through the chat, which can sometimes take a little bit longer, or by opening up your unmuting your mic and letting me know that you're having some problem, because sometimes there are things I can do on this end with the setup that can help the quality of especially the sound quality. So.
So I want to report with my headsets, it's a whole lot better, the sound quality. And I really want to send some appreciation to you, Rishi Michael, for playing the keys to the Heart Sutra last week, or 2 weeks ago. And that was the first mantra I ever learned. And wow, I've been with it for the last couple weeks because of what the beautiful rendition you played. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, very much so. That, I think, was Deva Premal's take on the Heart Sutra. Yeah.
Rishi.
Yes.
Brandy.
Hello, dear one.
I'm not sure if I'll be able to describe this, but I'll try. Recently, what's been coming up, especially during meditation, I'm noticing just where my mind's going and body sensations and all that. There just feels like there feels like a detachment of sorts, but it feels like I'm trying to distract myself or something. Like I know for myself in the past, and you know this about me, that I have been like maybe hyper vigilant, too much, too focused, where I wasn't focused at all. And there's some part of me that feels like I'm in the other direction or something, like I can't. And I'm noticing things, but it feels lazy, or it feels like I need to be doing something else, or it's not right somehow. I'm not really describing it correctly, but
no, actually, you're describing it quite well. I know the experience. Many people know the experience.
And I'm not sure. I guess I do notice that my mind is telling me that, no, that's not the way. That's not the way.
Yeah.
And there is some uncertainty for sure about it, and wondering how to. If you can speak to that a little bit, please.
Yes, I'd be happy to. So often when we come into spiritual life, even we've been in spiritual practice for a long time in one form or another, one way of practice or another, we come into it in the way that we are conditioned and raised and habituated as children, and as we come up and go to school and learn to go to work and so on. And so this understanding of ourselves is based more in our being a human doing rather than a human being. And so we come into practice, and for a long time it's very helpful to be involved in points of concentration, mindfulness of breathing, various kinds of practices come to us, mantra, prayer, repetition of the names of God, all sorts of things come. And in the beginning this is very helpful because it helps to calm the mind, to focus the mind, to bring us into the here and now. But at a certain point, we start to realize that this constant effort is not really getting us anywhere. And it's at this moment that, in a way, we can say true spiritual practice begins to happen kind of naturally on its own, or because someone has pointed out to us that true practice begins when we stop, which is what I referenced earlier with the pointing. And this stopping is not just the physical stopping of, oh, I'm not going to go out this morning, or every morning I'm going to sit on my cushion. That's a physical stopping, which is very, very supportive of mental stopping. Some of us have noticed over the years that by simply going to the cushion, getting in the position, dedicating the time, the mind very naturally comes to like this activity, and it will sort of stop on its own as soon as we take the position. But then we enter a more subtle field, if you will, of practice. And this is the field of practice in which the mind keeps on spinning. And so then we replace this spinning with some sort of formal practice. As I said, mindfulness of breathing, mantra, something like that. Something which focuses and centers the mind, pulls it away from this scattered attention on all sorts of different objects, and brings us more closely into the here and now. But over time, we come to realize that this constant effort, though it may calm us down for a few minutes, is an artificial calming. It's not resulting in a permanent letting go or a permanent calming of the mind and body. And so at that point, we begin to ask the kinds of questions that you're asking. What should I be doing now? The mind starts to challenge everything that comes up in your practice. No, this isn't it. No, that's not it. What the mind is doing there is acting to gain superiority again, because it realizes that you're letting go of it and it's losing dominance. Whether you call that mind or ego or whatever, it's losing preeminence. You are favoring something else. Mind and ego don't necessarily appreciate this very much. And so then it starts to put up all this noise about, are you doing this right? No, you're not doing this right. You don't understand. It won't happen. You're not getting it. All of this kind of chatter will come up in the mind. But the solution is always just to keep coming back into the recognition that you are being, consciousness, not doing. But this can be a challenging transition when you go from sitting on your cushion and doing this practice, this mantra, that mantra. And as I said, this comes when there's a deep recognition that the peace that comes from those kinds of spiritual practices is actually only a momentary peace. In yoga, there's something called breath retention. And this is a way in which the mind is slowed for meditation. And this is a way in which various kinds of breath are used, various levels of counting, 2 count, 3 count, 4 count, square counting, counting up to 8, down to 8, noticing gaps at each end of the inhale and exhale, things like this. But it's well known within those frames of practice that the mind will come to a very focused and very still place, but it will not be permanent. As soon as, maybe not as soon as, but within a few minutes of giving up whatever that breath practice is, the busy mind, the monkey mind, will once again enter in. And so one can see quite readily that one is not experiencing the inherent peacefulness and joy, which is the self. But the instruction for us at that moment is to continue into the recognition, maybe that I am not interested anymore I am no longer interested in this busyness in the mind. I'm not interested in making this supreme effort. We do this by coming back to the recognition, I am aware, here, now. This is the most direct method for coming back away from this conversation that the mind is having about you're not getting it, I don't understand it, no, that's not going to work, don't go in that direction. This challenge that the mind is putting up in order to retain its own preeminence. But as soon as you come back to the recognition, whether this is a mental speaking to yourself or not, as soon as you come back to the recognition, in this moment, I'm extending this now, you don't have to have this conversation with yourself, but this is illustrative. In this moment, I am aware. And there's a recognition here, I am aware. Or, that which is aware is here, now. Then we undercut this dialogue that's going on in the mind. In the beginning, this takes some time, because this dialogue may stand right back up and go, well, that's not going to work either. This is not going to get me anywhere. This is the mind re-entering the conversation again. Nonetheless, the recognition, that which is aware is here now, and they're actually settling into that. This needs to be a physical, almost, recognition. I am that which is aware, here, now. Then the possibility exists that at some moment you will settle into that recognition and stay there, even as things begin to rise again. But that discussion in the mind, where the mind is trying to assert itself again, that will come to an end.
Yeah, it feels very subtle sometimes. It's not necessarily like a wordy conversation. It's more
right.
Tone. And
yeah.
Sometimes I'll even concentrate on, or I'll be noticing sensations in the body, and my mind is very quiet, but the sensations of the body can have this like fearful effect or something that caused me to think, oh no, this is like I'm waiting for something.
Yeah, that anxiety can come. Yeah, that's characteristic of what happens when the mind feels like it's losing preeminence. Because as you said, you can be aware of sensations in the body, and the mind will subside at that moment. But I promise you that if the mind is not happy with that subsiding of its own dominance, then it will create in the body something like anxiety or fear in order to try to bring attention back to itself. The instruction is still the same. If it's helpful, you can of course say, oh, here is anxiety or here is fear or whatever. You can, in the Buddhist tradition, there's always this admonition that if you name something, you diminish its power. And that's true in a way. That's absolutely true. That if you name something, the reason is because in order to name something, there's a very subtle recognition that I am not that. I am that which is looking at that. So even if it's fear, emotional upset, difficulty of some sort, anxiety, because I'm able to see it, there's a deep knowing, not using the mind, there's just a deep knowing in being that if I can see it, if I can name it, I am not it. This is akin to the Vedantic practice of going, not this, not this, seeing fear, seeing anxiety, seeing the monkey mind, and going, not this, not this, not this. Through the understanding that because I can see this, I cannot be it. I must be that which is aware. This is what we're constantly coming back to. So just continue, because this is an indicator, as you said, this is sometimes a very subtle state. So the indicator here is that as we begin to go deeper and deeper, returning toward the source, back toward the self, back to the recognition of who I am, we begin to see more and more subtle states. And it's the penetrating of the more subtle states that leads us into the recognition, I am that which is aware. And not the phenomenon that are appearing in the awareness itself. So very good. Continue. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm often asked, is it really necessary that we look so particularly at all these little fine aspects or subtle aspects of mind? Is it necessary that we look at them? And I will say that ultimately the answer to that is no. But in the moment when they are rising, one of the very helpful practices that we can do is to keep noticing, I am aware of this, I am aware of this, or I am not this, not this, not this. This is because it's not enough to simply tell the mind with the mind, stop it. Most of you have noticed, all of us have noticed, that this mind is more tenacious than that. It's more demanding than that. So it's not enough to just keep brushing everything aside and saying, don't bother me anymore. Though this works, it's a temporary solution. So as we're noticing these more and more subtle phenomenon, I encourage you just to keep going and to keep recognizing that no matter how gross or subtle the phenomenon are, it's the recognition that which is aware is here now and is aware of this object. It is that particular practice which eventually undercuts all phenomenon, so that they absolutely have no interest for you, that the only thing that remains interesting is awareness itself. Your recognition of yourself as being, consciousness. And this, as I've said, is not personal. This is the way we know that the inquiry and other practices, whichever ones we are doing, if we are doing others, that these practices are taking deep root in us, is that we know that we are always aware under all circumstances. And our orientation is not the circumstances themselves. It's not what's rising in the mind. It's not what's rising in the body. It is what is here all the time, and aware of all of these circumstances, subtle and gross, as they come and go, which is their nature. And it is our awareness, our recognition, I am that which is aware, which is the foundation for all experience in body, mind, and world.
RishiJi, can you say something?
I can't quite hear you, Kamal.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you. Other microphone.
As you mentioned right now, you're talking about any practice or every practice has to stop. And a few days back, I mentioned that I'm going to Yogiram Surat Kumar Ashram morning and evening and chanting. So when you were right now talking about it, I was just recollecting that what I really exactly feel when I'm there. Is that my practice is always to keep checking who am I, even in the moment of chanting. It's just part of my system actually. It's just become, it's like it's doing on its own. It's
Yes.
like that.
Yes.
Maybe it is already like that only. It's just that by our practice we recognize the mechanism, isn't it?
Yes. So, to answer your question, which is actually different from that other question, to answer this question, I have to say, what needs to end is attachment. Some people become so attached to a teacher, a teaching, a practice, or whatever, that as soon as they veer away from that continual focus on that effort that's involved there, they become lost and they don't know what is happening. What you're talking about is a natural outpouring of the heart which happens as the heart opens and manifests itself as devotion in some way or another, whether it's chanting, offering flowers, chanting the names of God. All of this can definitely come. The difference between when it can become a hindrance and when it is not a hindrance is there a me present? Is there a me that's doing this with an effort to attain some goal? This is the attachment that has to be stopped, has to eventually be let go of. It's helpful in the beginning, helps to concentrate and focus, but at a certain point it has to be let go of. When this attachment is gone, the name of God may still just keep singing. And this is beautiful. But now there is nobody doing it, right? It is just the name of God which is resonating in the universe like Om, 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 Ram, 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 Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar, Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar, Om Shri Ramana, Om Shri Ramana. This will just go on. But this is now the nature of the heart. This is not any longer a mechanism that some me is using in order to get something, attain something, become something other than what I am. Do you see?
What I noticed was that when I am there in the presence of Bhagavan Yogiji and Devki Ma and the chanting, everything is, it really brings up on an energetic level. It like really brings me up.
Yes.
Every day is like morning and evening, like sunrise and sun down, as if I am charging myself up completely for the whole day sadhana, like as
Yes.
if I am, as I get up, I am there and I'm really full charged up, and the whole day I can really, there is like a lot of power, a lot of focus, and then at the end of the day when sun's going down, again I'm there full power. So it's like it's, so it so much grace pouring on me every moment to guide me every moment, whatever I do. Does it make sense?
Yes, yes, and this is the traditional reason or purpose, the science of spirituality, if you will, which has come out of 5,000 years of Vedanta experimentation, knowledge, teaching, the accumulation of the teachings of Vedanta and Advaita. This is the reason these practices, if you will, this way of devotion, this way of living the life of devotion, this is coming out of the experience of generations and generations and generations of sadhus and sadhaks and priests and so on in India itself. This is the science of spirituality. And so what you say is absolutely true. This is the experience of millions and millions and millions of devotees. So yes, in this case, we are just continuing, to feel the full presence of ourselves using these particular ways or methods. At some moment, what will come is this recognition that all of this that you are engaged in, this going in the morning and going in the evening and so on, that this is so much your nature that you may not even notice the morning that you don't go there, and the momentum of the chanting is just continuing on all the time. And so then there can be this recognition that this temple that you have been going to for months, weeks, years, whatever it's been, all of your life, that this temple is here. I'm fond of telling people, Anandi in particular, that I have this experience all the time of walking around Silver City, and in flashes I cannot tell if I am walking around Silver City or I'm walking around Arunachala. Something in the environment will look so similar or appear so present that for that moment it's impossible for me to know where I am, because this place, which is both Arunachala and Silver City and the world, is actually here. And in those moments of extreme clarity, it's impossible to see that there's a difference, and they are experienced as the same. So yes, it's beautiful, Kamal. Thank you for sharing. Just keep going. Keep going.
This is all. And what you're talking about, this is what is recognized, that it's just here.
Yes.
I am
Yes.
this, and so if I am at home or I'm in the temple or everywhere, it's
Yes.
just this.
Yes.
So
Just this. So beautiful. That is the most
yes,
that is the most direct way I can think of to share what that experience is like. It's this recognition that just this is enough. It's all. Yeah. Beautiful. Very beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. All right, everyone. So good to see you all again. Spend some time with you. It's a great joy to be with you all. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urva Urukamiva Bandhanam Mrityor Mukshiyamamritava Svaha Bhuva Vu Om Sat Jung Hang Om. Namaste. Wishing you all great joy, self-recognition, compassion for yourself and the world. Hari Om Tat Sat.